Hey everybody, Jake here from Bearded Gear, and I have another first impressions to do for you. If you saw the unboxing, you'll already know I'm currently in possession, not mine, but currently in possession of two ridiculously awesome Socom Elites. Now these might look like they're the same knife to you, and they should. They're both the same spec. They are signature series Socom Elites. They are black with bronze hardware. And the color on them is the same, but where they get different is the blade shape. They're also from different runs or different times. So this one is from 04-2020 and this one is from 05-2018. So there's about 2 years of manufacturing difference here. But two Socom Elites, and the difference is going to be this one is I think they're calling this a clip point. I think I called it a drop point in my unboxing. Pretty sure it's, according to Microtech, a clip point. And this is the Tanto. So you can see we've got two different blade shapes here. Otherwise, same exact knife for all intensive purposes. Is it for all intensive purposes or for all intents and purposes? I think it's intents and purposes. Anyway, grammar lesson with Jake. So this model from Microtech has been one of, if not the one, that I have most wanted to try for years now. I guess at first what most piqued my curiosity from Microtech was their OTFs. So I've had an Ultratech, I've actually had a couple of Ultratechs, I've had a Combat Troodon, and I think that's it on OTFs. I tried the LUDT, also loaned to me by YD Knives, who loaned me these two. So, by the way, YD Knives will be linked down below. Check out his Instagram if you haven't before. Super cool dude who's loaning me all kinds of cool stuff to share with you guys. So, yeah, the things I wanted to try most were their OTFs, because in my head, when I think OTF, or when I think Microtech, I think OTF. That's kind of what they're synonymous with in my brain. But then after that, the knives that I see get the most like enthusiast love outside of their OTFs are these. The Socom Elite is a knife that I see so many people raving about, and I think I'm beginning to find there are definitely some reasons why people rave about these. There are some undeniable strengths in this design that I think are really, really cool. There's also some things that I'm finding, to me, aren't perfect about them, and that's fine. So this is, as with all knives that I kind of test drive like this, where I spend about a week with them, the interesting thing is going to be whether I prove to myself I do want one and I got to start hunting for one and find the right one for me, or whether I find it was cool to check out, but I don't necessarily feel like I need one. So we'll see how I end up at the end of this. So far, I'm really enjoying having these. I've been putting this one, the Tanto, in pocket more, only because it had a little bit of a chip out of the tip before he sent it to me. I didn't do that to it, don't worry. And so since it's got a little bit of wear on it and the other one is more perfect in condition, I haven't been doing anything crazy with this knife or any of the knives that he sent me. I'm not going to be like torture testing any of them, but if a light to medium duty EDC task comes up and I need to open a box or cut a small zip tie, something like that, that's what I'll do with them. So it's been interesting so far. The glaringly obvious thing that many people bring up about the Socom Elite is that they are tip down only, and I am very accustomed to carrying tip up. That's what most knife enthusiasts in the year 2020, that's what our preference is for carrying knives. So it's interesting to me that Microtech still crushes it from what I see on this model without converting it to tip down. I've heard some people say that it can't be done because of this, like where they drill the liner in. It's got these screws back here, and there's a bulge on the knife. I call BS, because I've seen people on Reddit, etc., that have modded these to take a clip the opposite direction. and they've said it works fine, and they've got pictures and videos proving that it does. So I don't know how easy that is at home to like literally drill and tap holes and set it up to take a clip the opposite direction, but I wish Microtech would just do that, because I feel like that's one of the only consistent things I hear that people gripe with about this knife, is that it's tip up only, or tip down only, sorry. So let's talk a little bit about the construction, and then I'll talk about what I've been finding on it. This one is in M390, and it is their really, really nice DLC coating. I like this blade coating a lot. It's got a high shine to it. I hate that they put the giant rooster foot right in the middle of it, so big. If they made it like the diameter of the thumb stud and put it up here, I'd be fine with it. I don't hate your logo so much that I'm not willing to let you put it on the knife. But I personally, if that's how, I'm not the expert on how these work, but if getting a signature series, how this is, means that you get that logo, I don't want it. I would prefer to have their regular Microtech lettering and a different finish blade, even though I love this blade finish, so that it hid that more. That's just, maybe some people love it. I don't know. To me, that's a very annoying thing, that it's that giant quarter-shaped circle on the blade with, is that an eagle talon? I don't know. I'm not a Microtech guy through and through, so their branding isn't important to me. I don't need the billboard there. I feel like the knife should stand on its own without... So, other than that, like if you look at the clip side of this blade, it looks freaking perfect to me, because it's just sterile. It's coated super, super well. You've got that nice big bronze thumb stud, which I think looks good, and it works. The handles themselves are aluminum, and it's finished well. It's got what appears to me to just be hard coat anodizing on it. Feels a lot like Protex finish to me. It's got a little bit of kind of inherent grippiness to it. It's not overly slick, but it's not textured either. I like the finish on it. The matte black looks good to me. On the show side of the knife, it's got these inset, I think they're like maybe slightly rubberized, or I don't know how they do this per se, but these kind of traction points in the handle, and they do offer a good amount of traction right where my fingers land. I found that I wasn't sure how useful I'd find that actually was. I think it looks cool. It's like definitely part of the aesthetic of the knife, and it's done well here. That kind of texture, I don't know, sometimes it makes me think of like the Kershaw Blur, which I think it looks bad on the Kershaw Blur when they do stuff like this, but here it's done very, very well. All of the hardware is frankly pretty tiny. I feel like I've heard some people say they wish they would have used bigger Torx bits, and I understand why, because that is dainty little hardware holding this handle together, and it's a lot of it. I feel like maybe instead of using, what was that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws, maybe use 3 and make them bigger. I don't know, that's just me. Even the liner inside, this inset liner lock that's screwed in from these 2 screws over here on the back side of the knife, those 2, even that is anodized this cool bronze color. So everything on here is super uniform and matches. Honestly, the aesthetic of this knife to me would be downright perfect for what this knife is, for the nature of this knife, if we didn't have that giant insignia there. That's just, really wish it wasn't there, personally. I'm sure some people must love that for them to still be doing it on knives like that. But anyway, so this one's M390, this one is LMAX, and it's obviously, let's show you this blade shape because I've got both of them, right? Everything else about this knife other than the blade shape is identical, and the blade steel is LMAX, like I just said, but everything else, the same. Frankly, I personally prefer this blade shape. If I was getting one, I don't know, part of it feels a little bit wrong to me because I feel like this knife is almost synonymous with a Tanto. Like it's one of those designs that feels like a Tanto works so well for it. And if it only came in a Tanto, I would be, if I was getting one, I'd be happy with the Tanto. I don't dislike the Tanto, but I prefer the way this blade shape looks personally. I think it looks great. again, same issue, just that freaking rooster foot. It's the only thing that bothers me about these knives aesthetically. So there's that. Yeah, we've got aluminum, LMAX or M390, depending on when it was made. Everything on this knife, detail-wise, is done very, very well. There's nothing on here that the tolerances seem off on, although I will say neither of them are perfectly on center. And this one feels a little bit grittier than the other. That might just be an adjustment thing, but being totally honest with you guys, this one has a little bit more. You can just kind of hear some grittiness as you're deploying and closing it. It's got like a sound. And then the lockup, it does stick a little bit on this one, the lock tab. But there's a lot of grease happening in here, and I don't know. This knife didn't come new to me from Microtech, so I can't say that it like came out of the box off center and with a little bit of grit in it. That might just be how this one is right now, and it could very likely just be adjusted right out of it. So this one, the action, a lot smoother, but it does still sit just a little off center. I don't know if you'll be able to see with how black this knife is. It's probably hard to tell, but it's not quite perfectly centered. So let's talk about how it's going for me. The first thing that stuck out to me when I finally held this knife was how blade heavy it feels. Because these aluminum scales, the knife seems relatively thick overall when you look at like the profile of the handle, and I think it also it has like the taper to it that like the LUDT has, and I like that. But it's got these relatively thick aluminum scales that look like they're going to have some weight to them, but in reality these scales are very, very light. This knife is not light overall because this blade stock is really thick, and it's like 4 inches of blade. This is a significant blade that's on here, and so what that means is it kind of feels in hand to me like the Spyderco Paysan did, where it's not too heavy overall, but it's just when you're expecting, like when I pick up a folding knife in today's day and age, I expect it to feel pretty neutral in hand, or if not, more cases than otherwise, it's usually handle heavy on folders, especially like metal framed knives. Granted, this is aluminum, not titanium, and so I get why this is happening here. But yeah, when I pick up a knife, I'm expecting it to either feel pretty neutral or, if anything, a little bit handle heavy, and this is the opposite. It's definitely pretty blade heavy. Not necessarily a negative thing, just throwing it out there. So other than that, the first things I noticed were the action is a lot of fun. I like playing with this knife once I overcome that detent. And it's, yeah, it feels tough. Like this knife, it seems very tactical to me. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, not necessarily a great thing, depending on your preferences, but especially in these all murdered out black ones, it's a very tactical looking and feeling knife, and the sound of it is very tactile, and so it all comes together to just feel like a pretty hardcore tool. And I think that's part of the allure to this knife for a lot of people. The ergos work very well for me. I was worried this knife was going to feel too big, like the Spyderco Millie that I reviewed one relatively recently. That's a knife that I would love to love because I love the Para 3 and the PM2. The Millie's just the next size up, but the ergos on it are just a little too much room for me, and carrying it feels a little too big. This is kind of like right at the limit without crossing it of being too big, and then the handle shape is so neutral that it's very, very comfortable for me. I get a great hammer grip on here, a great saber grip. I like that I've got, if I kind of choke my hand back a little bit and go into a saber grip, I've got this ramp here, which gives me an awesome, like really, this feels like it's designed to pierce car doors. Like it's a very good grip for thrusting. And so with it being kind of a tactical knife, I get why that exists. Plus the whole, like the shape here at the top of the handle it's a great flare without being too much. It does give me that just really nice locked in sensation for pushing into material. It doesn't have the same effect backwards because instead of a swell, we've got a taper back here. It is jimped a little bit. The jimping on here doesn't bother me. which is funny because I'm Mr. I hate jimping, right? If you watch enough of my videos, you'll see I can't stand jimping. But this jimping isn't overly deep, it's not overly toothy, it's not sharp, it's chamfered fairly well on all of the sides of it. And so to me, I feel like if it didn't have that jimping back here, where this handle tapers instead of swells, I'd be way more worried that this knife is going to slip out of my hand that way. So overall, the whole design feels to me more like it lends itself to thrusting. This is a stabbing implement and not like a slashing implement as much, in my opinion, although I don't think it would necessarily suffer at slashing either. In reverse grip, it's pretty good, but there's a kind of a fatal flaw to me. If I'm in reverse grip, I want a nice flat to put my thumb on, and not only does that not exist here, I have to kind of go like this, which when I have a flat, I feel like I've got another way to lock into the knife so that when I thrust down into something, my hand doesn't come down the blade, right? But here, that flat doesn't really exist, and the little one that there would be is, in my opinion, ruined by a glass breaker. Now, Microtech puts way worse glass breakers on a lot of their knives. I never want a glass breaker on any of my knives. To me, it's like having a lanyard hole, or I don't know. It's pretty synonymous with a lanyard hole. There are two things that I'm never going to use. I'm not going to put a lanyard on this knife, even though you've put a hole for me to be able to do it. It's just not something I'm ever going to do. And I've never felt the need to use a glass breaker. I've never been in a situation where I have actually needed to. And I get that there's a very small percentage of the market, maybe, that are like emergency first responders, and they might feel that they need one. I feel like, I don't know, it's redundant to me. I don't like the idea of putting features on a knife that you're trying to make wildly popular, that are specific to a very small part of the audience, and make it less good to the bigger audience you're trying to serve. Like, the average consumer in the knife market who's buying this knife, I don't think is having this knife on duty and breaking into windows all the time with it. I think it's mostly knife guys. That's like, there's some overlap, sure, but that's the way I fall on that. I would much rather maybe make it so that someone can screw on a glass breaker if they want to. I don't know if this one would be easy to take off. It doesn't look like it would, but it would be better to me if they made it a feature you could add to the knife and make it somewhat seamless so someone could do that if they felt the need to, but don't ruin reverse grip for me. I'm not putting my thumb there anymore. My thumb's going to wrap around this side, and I'm going to be less locked into this knife. It's like a reverse hammer grip now, instead of kind of a reverse saber, is I guess what I'd typically describe it as. I can't put my thumb there comfortably. It doesn't work. So, there's that. Yeah, that's ergos. Let's talk a little bit about carry, because even though this knife is tip down only, I have found that it carries fairly well. If I compare it to the Spyderco Millie, I think that's an apt comparison, because that one was also tip down only and very large. This, in my opinion, carries a lot better than that knife did. The way this knife feels in pocket to me is way more manageable, and I can carry this front right pocket comfortably as my primary, and I have to think when I'm pulling it out that it's in the opposite direction of knife. Normally I pull the knife out and it's this way and I'm ready to go, right? Because the tip is up. But pulling it out this way, I have to pull it up and then just kind of flip it over into my hand the way I want it. Now, for a long time, I carried tip down knives when I was like a kid, and that's what was popular. So it's not that foreign, but gosh, if they could just make it tip up, it would be such an improvement, in my opinion. Regardless of it being tip down only, it does carry fine. It's not the worst in pocket. It does put the widest part right up here at the top, and that's another kind of bummer of it. If it was this way, it would make so much more sense to be reaching your hand in your pocket past the knife to get to your stuff, right? But instead we've got the bulk, the meatiest part of the knife right here, where I've got to like gain entry next to it. That is what it is. Let's talk about cutting a little bit. I haven't done a ton of cutting with this knife, but I have done a little bit. Opened some boxes, and what did I have to cut? There was like some ribbon on something for my wife that I had to like cut into, and it cuts very well. This knife is way thinner behind the edge than I thought it was before I started hearing people say it was thin behind the edge, and now I can kind of confirm by holding it. It's like, this isn't the thinnest, sliciest knife I've ever handled, not even close, because it's a pretty thick stock, and so it also gets thick pretty fast right after the edge. But right where the edge is actually set, it does feel on this primary bevel, if you will. It feels pretty thin to me for the type of knife that it is. I've had much smaller, much less tactical knives that were much thicker behind the edge than this, and so it cuts well, and the edge that they put on it at Microtech is very good. Not the best factory edge I've ever felt, but it's good. I think that's pretty much it for first impressions. When I get to the full review, I'm sure I'll have more to say. Let's switch to this one just because I haven't given it as much love. But I really, really like these knives. I'm enjoying them so far. I have almost bought them. I've almost bought one so many times. And there's a bunch of different configurations and colors. And yeah, I don't know. I may feel with this one, once it's gone, like I need to have one for myself. Because as like big kind of tactical folders go, this is a really good balance. The closest thing in my collection to it right now, actually, I think I have it, would probably be, sorry, in like size and application, it would probably be like my ZT 308 in size comparison, right? They're both about the same blade length, and they're, I think, kind of similar in what they're designed to do. But this knife is a lot lighter, a lot slimmer, and the funny thing is it doesn't carry better because of the clip placement, but it would if it was tipped down. It so would. But yeah, it feels like it might be a more balanced version of what these knives are designed to do. I love the ZT308. It's been a great knife for me. In fact, I think I still need to do my full review on this. I've been slacking on that, haven't I? Maybe I did do that already. I will have to look back and see if I fully reviewed that knife. Anyway, this gives that a run for its money in this segment to me. And I don't have a lot of knives that are 4-inch blades. That's typically bigger than what I like usually carry, but I like having one or two of them around because there's something confidence inspiring sometimes when you're going to that sketchy gas station at night or something, having a knife like this in your pocket. It's just it's more knife, and that feels good sometimes. Is it often that I find myself with a 3.5-inch folder and there's a task that I'm like, man, if I had that extra 1/2 inch of blade length, I could really get this done, but with this knife I'm struggling. No, that's for the bulk of my activities, doesn't make a difference, but there's something about having that little bit more blade too. So anyway, this has been fun. These are my first impressions, well, that's hard to do left-handed, of the Microtech Socom Elite. As you can see, both blade shapes look fantastic. Both of these are really, really cool knives. Let's see if I can... Is that the best way I can do that? That looks cool, right? Anyway, thank you again to YD Knives for loaning these to me. Stay tuned if you guys want to see a full review of them. That'll be coming soon. And in the meantime, hope you guys have a good week.